to another Doctor Who Big Finish review. Today I'm continuing my look at the Doctor Who monthly range with the May release Vampires of the Mind, with the 6th Doctor battling Alex Maqueen as seen in Dark Eyes. Now I know a lot of people have been quite interested for this release because it has got Alex Maqueen in and they're wondering quite exactly how it worked, and this is in fact the only Colin Baker story that we're going to get in the monthly range up until October-November time. So if you're a Colin Baker fan, this is like a perfect release for you, to be honest, because it's probably one of the only 2-hour episodes that we're getting this year. Aside from that though, in other sort of 6th Doctor news, I got this week from W.H. Smith. You may know that I used to get this, the Complete History range, but yeah, I didn't get any of the relaunch, and I seen that they were doing a 6th Doctor one for this month, so I decided to pick it up. And yeah, I'm probably not going to review it or anything, but yeah, I thought I would just share that with you because I know a lot of people like the Complete History range, and this is a great release because it's got Colin in and lovely artwork. But yeah, moving on to Vampires of the Mind. Now, in case you are unaware, basically a few weeks ago I reviewed And You Will Obey Me, and that is the sort of episode 211 of the monthly range, and basically it sort of continues on in a way in this sort of master trilogy. And as you also may know, in my previous review I did Jago and Lightfoot series 11 with the 6th Doctor, also as well with Geoffrey Beavers as master. Now there is actually a few little links between the stories in the episode that I will go into in a little bit, but yeah, just in case if you're confused, I could say that you could get this release and without having And You Will Obey Me, and possibly even the upcoming one as well, of the two masters. But yeah, I think it's just sort of nice to have them all together. If you've not checked that review out, I would recommend checking it out before this one, just to go in sort of chronological order. But yeah, as of this release, it's $14.99 and it is available now on the Big Finish website, so I will leave the link in the description below. All that's over, moving on to the story itself. Once again, I went into this one without even reading the description, because that's how I like to do Big Finish. But yeah, this episode is actually quite an interesting one, and it's a different sort of idea to a master story, really, much like the last one, because we had a very different one there as well. And yeah, it is an interesting story. In case you are unaware, the 6th Doctor for this one is technically companionless, but you're introduced to a character called Heather Threadstone, which she's basically the daughter of a professor that the Doctor knows. So earlier on in the story, the Doctor goes to visit for, I believe, just some reason, and it turns out that he's not there. He's in fact in America, but at the door there is Heather, who she previously met when she was very small, probably about 5 or something, with the 6th Doctor's face. So she basically invites him in to have a catch up and a cup of tea, which leads to a few nice scenes with the 6th Doctor trying to not eat biscuits, you know, which was very entertaining to see. But the story's certainly one of those ones that starts off quite slowly and basically gradually sort of brings you into the actual story. There isn't really much confusion in this one. Unlike And You Will Obey Me, I found myself around part 3 getting incredibly confused in different parts of all the different people. This one is a complete opposite one. This one is a very sort of secluded story, actually. It's based on an island later on a southern island, which I will come on to in a little bit because that does have relevance. But yeah, it's quite a small cast story, or at least I say the cast that is relevant is quite small. So we do have a few minor roles in there, like a landlady, something like that, or some of the blanks, which I will come on to a little bit later. But basically those characters just sort of contribute a few lines to the story, don't really add it that much. But yeah, the actual major characters that you need in the story in order for it to work, there's only really Heather Threadstone, Professor Threadstone, and Alex Maqueen, and also his sort of sidekick guy, but even he is sort of questionable. So for this episode, there is quite actually a small relevant cast, which it's a nice change. So going on to the story itself, basically there's been some scientific people that have gone off to do some scientific studies, and they've basically not came back. They've all disappeared. Heather has a few phone calls with people that know other scientist people, and it turns out that they have a similar situation, and basically Threadstone went off to America, but it turns out that he never in fact reached America, and instead he sort of doubled his way back to this southern island to go to this sort of institute. If you've seen my Jago and Lightfoot series 11 review, the next few lines that I'm going to say will probably ring a few bells in your mind, but basically there's this institute called the Dominus Institute, which is their name that the master went by in Jago and Lightfoot, I do believe for episodes 2 and 3, I can't really remember though. And yeah, we do have a few little links there to Jago and Lightfoot. Of course the 6th Doctor was in those episodes as well, so that does sort of ring a few little bells in his head. And yeah, that's a nice little reference. If in case you don't know, Dominus is basically Latin for master, which I was previously unaware of in Jago and Lightfoot, so it's nice that it's sort of continuing on this sort of little plot line in there. Basically, the Doctor and Heather are suspicious, so they go to this exhibition about the event, and the person that they want to see, who I do believe is called Gobnar or something, he basically isn't there, and there's a few family issues which has prevented him going, which the Doctor is immediately suspicious at this, of course, and we have him going around the event, not really having a fun time. Heather's quite excited though, because it's quite a scientific, technological event, so she's quite into the stuff, because she's sort of like a Doctor person herself, and yeah, the Doctor's not really having too much fun, as he can't find the people that he wants to see. But early on in the story, we're introduced to this device that basically is a mind device which allows people to have the memories of somebody else, which comes incredibly handy for people like such as dementia and things like that. And yeah, that's sort of a plot line that, as you can guess by the title, is something that further comes up in the story that does have a lot of relevance. Gobnar, in fact, has a few family issues, as I've said, and his sister is basically suffering from dementia, and she can't remember things, which of course this device will be able to help her, but Master uses that against Gobnar in order to get the scientists to work on this device. Quite a twisted plot, to be honest, because that is quite a mean thing to do for the Master, really. And once again, I've never heard of that in Doctor Who before. Yay! As we later find out, the Master's TARDIS isn't really working very well. Don't quite know why, but it's not really working to full potential. It's getting very sort of random. It's going different places it shouldn't. These scientists, in order to fix his TARDIS, which he wants to get all these human minds together in order to sort of tweak his TARDIS, make it better. And yeah, the Doctor's quite confused by this by the end, because he thinks of why wouldn't you just get sort of Time Lord scientists or something like that. And he purposely lures the Doctor there. He makes it very obvious, which is something that I clicked onto very early on in the story. We were introduced to the plot, the idea, everything within the first 15 minutes, which I do like that. I think that sometimes stories really work by doing that and not really overcomplicating things, which is what the Master did. He basically created this idea that is Dominus, i.e. Latin for master. I do believe Gobnar is also Spanish for master, I do believe, or something like that. So it's basically making these links for the Doctor to go and spot. So he goes to the event, and Master plays around with him, because in order to get into the Institute, basically they need to apply online. And Heather applies as well, with her being a Doctor, just to have double chances, and the Doctor applies as well. And ironically, the Doctor's sort of application doesn't get through, and he's not actually allowed to, but Heather, in fact, does get in, because then the Master is sort of just teasing him, and I really like that, because I think that the relationship between the Master and the Doctor there sort of works. They're just really some annoying brothers, really, I guess. But yeah, I like that little relationship that they've got, and we have a few little funny scenes there with Colin, such as a Russian person tried to send her picture, which yeah, let's not go into that actually. Overall, for characters-wise, as I said, quite a secluded story. Heather, I really enjoyed in it. Basically, she filled the idea of the companion shoes for the story. The actual actor is Kate Kennedy, and yeah, she was really good, actually. I don't know where they're going with the idea of Mrs. Clark. I don't know if she's just absent for the story. I don't know where this, in fact, comes in the Doctor's timeline at all. I don't believe that was referenced, but I'm guessing that this may have been before Constance Clark, or before any other companion, I guess. But yeah, I'm guessing that when the Doctor does come back in November, Constance Clark will probably be involved, as with Criss Cross and the other 3 stories released at the later end of last year. And getting in a few thoughts about Alex Maqueen as well. I've listened to a bit of Dark Eyes. I do intend to listen to more in the future, because I've heard it's literally one of the best things that Big Finish has ever produced, which is something that I hear quite a lot for many different things, because Big Finish has such a wide idea of categories and things like that. But Dark Eyes is definitely one that I am into and I want to sort of look at. I've in fact got the physical copy of Dark Eyes 1, which I do intend to get through at some point, probably after my exams. That would help quite a lot. But yeah, I do intend to listen to that. But from what I know, the Alex Maqueen Master is just a brilliant actor. I think that he brings something to the role which none of the other Masters do. Geoffrey Beavers, I adore him as well. I've never really had much of a thought about Geoffrey Beavers, as I said in the last review, because I do believe that he only appeared in The Keeper of Traken. But once again, much like sort of characters that don't appear much in Doctor Who, like Colin himself, Big Finish allows them to expand in their era, and Geoffrey Beavers is such a brilliant master, and quite honestly, all of the masters that I've heard so far on Big Finish, including Alex Maqueen, Geoffrey Beavers, all of them have been really good, and I dare say both of them are up there with my highest masters in sort of a ranking in a way, because I do really enjoy them. Moving on to Colin as well, of course, he was great in this story as well, and much like any other story, because I think that Colin just delivers something different to the role. I think that he's a bit like Jago Lightfoot in a respect, like Jago especially. I think that Jago always has these brilliant one-liners, and you will see that when you listen to Jago and Lightfoot, and I think that that is sort of being portrayed within Colin, and Justin Richards just does a brilliant job. I'm aware that Justin Richards is in fact also familiar with J. Gunn Lightfoot. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure he in fact wrote the final story for the series of Series 11, in fact. So this is in fact the second story with the Master and the Sixth Doctor. And yeah, he is just a brilliant Doctor in the story. Once again, Big Finish has allowed for him to expand. He has some brilliant one-liners in there, some really funny moments. And I think that his interaction with Alex Maqueen, of course, because it's sort of altered timelines, and he doesn't in fact know that that is the Master technically, and he gets confused at the regeneration and all that, which as he would. And yeah, I think that they work very well. I think that considering we've not seen Alex Maqueen and the Sixth Doctor together so far, they do have a very good relationship. I think the Doctor works very well with Alex Maqueen's Master. No doubt we won't really get to see them together again, but I'm very looking forward to the Two Masters, which comes out next month, as that has both Geoffrey Beavers and Alex Maqueen in, and Sylvester McCoy, which that's going to be one crazy story, probably. The Two Masters, never had one of them. General premise of the story, as I said, is basically the Master is on this island, and the island does in fact have relevance, as if you can remember, at the end of the Daemons and all the issues with Devil's End, the Master is in fact imprisoned on this island, and yeah, I do believe that he gets out in the Sea Devils, but don't quote me on that one, but I do believe that he spends quite a bit of time on this island, and I do believe that he's in there for a few stories, sort of imprisoned, and during that time he sort of creates this machine in order to attract an alien, which is what he does in the story, and the Master comes back to the island as the technological stuff has worked, and yeah, we basically have this thing which is a mind leech, which she comes from the planet, what's the planet called? Carentia? Caramentia. She's this vampire leech, and as you can suggest by the title, she feeds off minds unlike blood. Very interesting idea. Genuinely, we don't get to see her too much in the story. I do believe that she sort of comes into it technically at sort of the back end of sort of episode 3. So yeah, we don't really get to see much screen time with her in, especially Alex Maqueen as well earlier on. We don't in fact see him as much, and he's nearing the ending parts of the story in fact. So yeah, we don't get to see either of them too much, which is something that I could sort of say for Colin in J. Gunn Lightfoot as well. So yeah, we don't really get to see full on a lot of Alex Maqueen and a lot of this vampire leech. It's very much based around Colin and Heather trying to figure out what's going on. What's very interesting for this story is the Doctor always wants to contact Unit, which yeah, I don't think we ever had. We didn't have a sort of interaction with Unit in the actual series for the Sixth Doctor. Honestly, the Unit wasn't in the story. They were referenced several times. That's how the Doctor got the VIP passes for the event. But yeah, it was nice to sort of hear them being mentioned, as I do like it when we have sort of little links to other stories. Into the story, of course, has the Master capturing the Doctor by using the blanks, which are basically these zombies that have been having their mind sort of drained from them, which is very, very creepy. And he basically ties him to this machine, and he's going to extract his brain using the vampire leech. He's promised some of the energy to her, and all of the memories are going to go into him. And we don't quite know why he wants to do this to start with, but then the Doctor brings up the idea of post-regeneration trauma. And then the Master has a little moment, and then we start to realise that this episode pretty much takes place as one of the first adventures Alex Maqueen's Master goes on. Don't want any spoilers at all. I would highly recommend sort of flashing forward a minute so it doesn't actually get revealed, which I was very shocked by this point, so I will give you a chance now. We have a bit of a flashback in this story. Don't know if it's happened before. I don't know if it's actually sort of a grab from another story that's been added in. But basically, from what I could tell, we had the regeneration of Alex Maqueen's Master, which that's why I love Big Finish. I did not expect to be walking into the story and listening to a regeneration. And yeah, we basically had that. We didn't really have any of the build-up. We just had some simmering effects. And then the Alex Maqueen Master coming through and saying how he's got new hands and he feels so healthy, because of course previous to that I do believe he was probably the sort of decayed Master again, Eric Roberts, and then we had I would say he went back to the decayed Master again, didn't he, for the Time War, and then he came back as Alex Maqueen, I'm guessing, don't quote me on that, but Geoffrey Beavers is in there as well and Keeper of Track, and it's confusing. Somebody introduced the timelines to me for Big Finish, for the Master, I really don't know. Yeah, that's that for this release. I do tend to actually listen to the monthly range in a bit of a gap. I do tend to listen to 1 and 2, then go and do something and come back. But for this one, it didn't feel like 2 hours. Yeah, I didn't do that for this one. I listened to it literally all in one sitting, which is something quite rare for the monthly range. I never tend to do that. And yeah, I think that this episode was one of those ones that, as I said, it had a simple plot. but it worked very well. It worked with the story, it worked with the characters, and that allowed me to actually enjoy the story without having these really confusing parts in between that sort of took me out of it. As I said, I listened to it in a whole one sitting, which yeah, I enjoyed it. I think that it didn't feel like 2 hours at all, which is a plus for a story. And yeah, I think that genuinely it's probably one of the best sequence stories for the monthly range that I've listened to so far, because personally I do tend to like the sort of more concise stories for the box set ones, such as like the Doom Coalition sort of format, of having like 1 hour stories. I do quite like that format, and say the Jago Lightfoot format of that sort of length as well. I do tend to quite like that. And sometimes I feel that the monthly range can be a bit of a drag in places, and sort of especially episodes on the back end of 2 to the start of 3, it just tends to faff on a little bit in places for some episodes. But for this, it felt like it was a very structured story, and as I said, probably one of the best structural stories that I've listened to in quite a while. So as I said at the start of the review, I will leave in the description below the link to go and buy this release from Big Finish's website. It's $14.99, and I do believe $10.99 for the digital download release as well. It's available now for May, and I do believe that it comes out nationally with all the other shops such as Forbidden Planet at the back end of the month, with probably a few extra pound added on, so I do recommend buying it from the Big Finish website. So thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a big like, and please subscribe if you're not already. If any questions, please do leave them below, and I'll be sure to answer them at some point in the near future. Thanks again for watching. I shall see you all next time. So thanks for watching, and bye for now.